little bit ago, you mentioned that Kim Kardashian did come to Oklahoma to meet Julius Jones, and you had a massive part in that. And I want to finish the podcast, talking about that, and not just only last year, right? This has gone on for way too long. But you had a very, very unique part in that. And I remember the day after, waking up in the morning and kind of just scrolling through Instagram and seeing that you're on BBC News. I'm like, people in the UK are talking to someone I've had on the podcast in Oklahoma.
That's wild.
And then I remember the time difference. I'm like, Kelli hasn't slept in 2 days.
That was insane. Yeah.
But for people listening that kind of don't know, I mean, they know a bit about it, or they may have seen it on the news, but they probably saw it like many that last week, right?
Sure.
They didn't see the whole thing leading up to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as much as you want to talk about it, tell me about it.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was contacted by someone on behalf of the Julius Jones, basically the coalition, Justice for Julius Coalition. And they were really trying to just honestly reach out to Oklahomans who could raise awareness about Julius's case, and in particular, write letters to Governor Stitt to take a look at the case. And at the time when I was contacted, I knew nothing about the case, and I'm embarrassed to say that. I had not seen the documentary, The Last Defense. I was just not aware. I didn't even remember when it happened. A lot of my friends that grew up in Edmond remember very vividly when it happened and when he was arrested and the trial, but I knew nothing about it. And so I said, I'm sorry, I don't know that I can help, but maybe I should learn more about the case. And it interested me. And so being a lawyer, having never practiced criminal law, I knew that I was kind of stepping out of my area of expertise, but I also, during law school, had worked for Judge Lumpkin, Gary Lumpkin. He's on the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. So my first legal job was reviewing, researching, and writing opinions for criminal appeals. And I remember just from that experience alone, I remember just how difficult it is to overturn a conviction or to win on appeal. It happens, but it's not as common as you would think. And so I asked for the case file. Initially, I was sent some bullet points and some press releases and the documentary. And I said, with all due respect, I don't want to watch a documentary. I want to actually read the facts of the case.
Right.
And I want to know what the evidence is. And as I studied and got further and further into it, I just wanted to know more. I wanted to know what actually happened. As much as it was possible, I wanted to know the facts. Yeah. I wanted to know everything that has been discovered since then. And I wanted to know about the trial. And I'm one of the few people, I guess, that's done this outside of his now legal team. I read every single filing, every transcript, every submission, every piece of evidence, every affidavit, watched every video, everything. Because the more I learned, I thought, oh my gosh, Oklahoma is about to execute an innocent man. But if I'm going to stick my neck out, I really want to make sure that we're getting this right. And I want to make sure as Oklahomans we get this right. And so I spent all that time and became fully convinced for a lot of reasons, but specifically because someone else had confessed to the murder to multiple individuals who had come forward with nothing to gain for sharing that information. The thing that stuck out to me the most, there was really no investigation done by his original legal defense team. None. The case was tried on the police reports. And when it came to the point in the transcript, after the prosecution presented all their facts, all their evidence, all their witnesses, it came Julius's turn to present his case, and his attorneys literally stood up and said, "We rest."
Oh my gosh.
Nothing. No witnesses, no evidence, no arguments, nothing. And so the jury had no choice.
Right.
And my thought was, we can't go back. All of his appeals had already run. We can't go back and retry this case. But if the jury had heard this information, at the very least, I don't believe he would be on death row. Right. But I truly believe he would have been acquitted. And so our only hope was to appeal to the governor, to the Pardon and Parole Board, and to get them to make a recommendation to the governor to either pardon him or grant parole. And so after reviewing everything, I asked to meet with his current legal defense team, who they're amazing. And I asked to meet with him personally, which apparently nobody had asked to do, that had been asked to be an advocate of his. Yeah, the attorneys were the only ones who had met with him. And so I went to McAllister, and for my very first visit to a prison ever, it was on death row, and I was escorted through various, chambers and, doors, and it was as dark and awful and dirty as you can imagine. It was disgusting, and sat in this teeny tiny room and met him, and he was in, chains and leg irons and handcuffs, and sat and talked to him for 2 hours, and it was the most impactful conversation I think I've had in a long time. Because his perspective was so different than what I expected it to be. He was not bitter. He'd been bitter and angry for a long time of why did this happen. But he had come to a point where he said, I'm here not because I killed someone. I'm here because of the choices I made as a teenager. I chose to run around with the wrong crowd. I chose to do some really stupid things, to do some shoplifting. I helped people, with things not with criminal things, but he would take tests for people, and he just became a friend to people who were doing very bad things. And it put him in a position to be accused of this and essentially set up for this. And he said, the reason that gives me hope is that I know that if I can help other young men realize that it's not just because of the system, which is broken. We need to make some changes.
There's no doubts about that.
And it's broken. It's funny because I come at it from a perspective that I am a law and order person. I believe in our justice system, but I also believe that our justice system, although it's the best in the world, is flawed because human beings are flawed. And if there are flaws, we need to acknowledge them and fix them. As much as it's in our power. And so he had hope because he's like, look, yes, we've identified some breakdowns in the criminal justice system. Let's fix them. But even beyond that, let's teach young people that their decisions can determine their outcome in life. He said, if I had just taken ownership of my life and my future and the opportunities that I had in front of me, back when I was 18, 19 years old, my life would look a lot different. And so his whole goal now is not just to be free, but to really pour into young people and give them hope and inspiration that their lives don't have to turn out like his did. And I walked out of there feeling so uplifted by someone on death row who was facing the death penalty. And so, so that's the background. I walked out of that prison that day and said, I'm going to do everything I can to fight for him. I went back and took one of my NFL players to meet him, changed his life, changed his perspective, gave him hope. I worked with the legal team to prepare for the Pardon and Parole Board hearing. We were granted a commutation hearing. Julius personally asked me to speak on his behalf, which I did. And we were able to win commutation. That recommendation went from the board to the governor. The governor declined to rule on it and said we need to go to clemency, which clemency can only happen if there is actually a death date, a date set for execution. And in Oklahoma, I don't know if any of your listeners are aware, but there's been a moratorium on executions up until this year because of ongoing litigation with the methods that Oklahoma uses to execute. And that's still ongoing. But basically the federal judges in that legislation said, well, let's go ahead and let them go forward. And if they're botched, then we'll have more evidence. And it blows my mind. Just some of the things that we're seeing happen blow my mind. But I continued to fight for Julius and walked through the whole commutation process with him, clemency process with him. We won again at the second hearing for clemency, the Pardon and Parole Board recommended to the governor to grant, to commute his sentence to life with a possibility of parole. And then we waited and had to wait until, and I'm going to get choked up if I'm not careful. The governor did not commute the sentence until 3 hours before he was set to die.
Yeah. It was
awful.
It was,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people
awful.
listening know.
We had said our goodbyes. I spent time with him, helping him figure out everything he wanted to say after they strapped him to the gurney. Never want to go through that again.
No.
All the things that he wanted to do with setting up a foundation to keep influencing young people. That was what his focus was. The day he was set to die, the thing that kept him going was that there would be those of us who would carry on his legacy. And what really, really got to him, and apparently what really also got to the governor, was all of the high school students that walked out. That was so powerful. And I remember him saying, after the fact, it wasn't like, look at what these students are doing for me. It was, look at these students who realize that they have power, that they can use their voices for good and for change. And it was so remarkable to see, particularly Julius. Julius seemed to be the strong one through all of this for us. And he wasn't even focused on, for him, this was not even about racial injustice. This was just about justice. Right. This was just about let's get it right, and let's give people, faith in our judicial system. Let's give young people hope for their future. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on how we can bring people together and work together. And it's what was really remarkable. And I did a lot of any interviews that I was asked to do. I tried to take on because they were asking the family to do everything, and the family just couldn't do everything. Yeah. And I said, look, if I need to answer questions, I'm available. Don't need to, but if you need me, let me know. Yeah. And the questions I got over and over was, this was a remarkable coming together of very strong conservative groups, very strong pro-life groups, Republicans, Democrats, progressives. It brought everybody together in a way that honestly we haven't seen.
No, not at all.
Certainly not in criminal justice reform. And so to get to be part of that and to see the outcome of that, to literally save a man's life. And I played a small role. Yeah. A lot of people were involved in it, but to be part of that effort, I will always be grateful that we got to fight that fight. Yeah. And the fight continues. I talk to Julius regularly now. He's able to call. He's now in a lower security prison. He's actually considered, this is crazy, and he has been from the beginning, he's considered like the lowest security risk. Whatever the rankings are of prisoners, he's at the least risky. Yeah. And so he's slowly being given more rights. He was actually able to hug his mom. He was able to see the sun and walk outside for the first time in 22 years.
God, that's insane.
He's still in life. He's still in prison for life. Yeah. We're hoping that over time we'll be able to seek a pardon for him, which will be the next step. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm continuing to work with him, and I can't wait to see him again. I'll get to visit him soon. And we talk all the time. I kept telling him, I can't wait to have you over to dinner, and we talk about it all the time of what his life is going to look like someday when he can just have a normal life and have the influence that he wants to have on people.
Just to be given that opportunity to give back and do what he wants to do. Yeah,
which he's doing from where he is right now. He's trying.
Which is extremely powerful. Yeah. To be able to do that.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you first met him, you did not expect him to be the way he was.
Oh, no.
And that's just, a lot of people in that situation, would be super angry and they'd have a lot of hatred. And sadly, some of them might even take their own lives.
Sure.
That's statistically, that's there as well. And you have all this stuff going on.
Absolutely.
And, through this, it wasn't just, it was global news.
It was. Yeah. It was, what's fascinating though is that didn't really register with him. He didn't see himself as this global celebrity.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm still locked up.
I still
have no rights. I still am here. And so I think it was disheartening to see some of the rhetoric coming out against him, saying, well, he thinks he's going to be famous off of this or get rich off of this or whatever. And no, that was not.
He's going to have a book deal and all the other stuff.
Right, yeah, all those things. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
let's not lose perspective here.
Right.
So, yeah.
That for you, I mean, just coming to work every day and knowing that you've been through this and you've been, you've been a part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, any challenge you have in work is nothing, right, compared to the life that Julius is living and the challenges that he has, and it gives you so much strength going forward.
Truly.
Right?
Yeah, it's
clients
perspective.
as well, like
oh my gosh. And I called and spoke to each of my clients before I even took on the case and just said, how do you feel about this? All of them were on board. And someday I might publish it. I sent a message the night before the execution when I had been told, unless a miracle happens, he's going to be executed. Right. I sent a message to all of my clients and just said, here, it's not looking good. Please keep praying. Please keep us all in your thoughts and prayers. Keep Julius in your thoughts and prayers. This is probably it. It's probably over. We've fought the good fight. And, but yeah, I've never seen more joy from my guys, as when we finally got the news, the good news the next day. And, and it does, I was getting ready for a contract negotiation for a free agent of mine. And I'm thinking, I now think about sitting in that hearing room and realizing that I had basically 5 minutes to save someone's life, to fight for their life.
Yeah.
Negotiating a contract is, I got this. That's nothing compared to, it's a big deal.
Right.
Huge deal, life-changing deal, but it's not the same pressure as we faced with that.
God.
So, major perspective shift.
You're an amazing human being. That's all I'm going to say.
You're so sweet.
It's nuts.
Thank you.
Me listening to the story, thinking about, you being there and Julius just being the way he is. And then just remember seeing the video of his mum and
I know.
It's
yeah.
It's extremely powerful. And like you said, job's not finished. Work's not done yet. It's a long way to go. But you're a part of it. And that's really, really special.
Thank you.